Good evening, Whitemarsh. I'd like to call to order our Whitemarsh Board of Supervisor meeting for July 14th, 2020, beginning around 7:05 p.m. to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fran, would you like to share announcements?
Thanks, Laura. The closure on Butler Pike between addresses 5160 and 5168 nearby Lulu Shrine will begin July 25th. Local residents will have access via Campus Drive or Stenton Avenue, Township Line Road. Pre-construction work for Ridge Pike begins Monday. Single-lane closures with flagging will be in effect between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. These announcements get progressively better. Road surfacing began today, or local roadways. See the full list on the Township website or today's edition of the Whitemarsh Weekly. Movies in the Park continues on July 20th at Miles Park, featuring Field of Dreams. The showing will begin at dark, and residents are reminded to bring their own lawn chairs or blankets for seating. Whitemarsh Township is giving away free trees. Don't miss out on your opportunity to receive one of 7 native tree species being given away this September 24th. Trees are available on a first-come, first-served basis. See the Township website for the online application and details. Applications are also available at the Township building. That's it.
Thanks, Fran. And I believe we have a lovely sign at the front of the entrance of the Township building of all the trees. So thank you, Sean Halbum, for that. And tonight we have a proclamation to read. JC, would you like to take this?
Yes. The proclamation is a designation of July as Park and Recreation Month. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Whitemarsh Township, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles, and whereas Parks and Recreation is a leading provider of healthy meals, nutrition services, and education, and whereas Parks and Recreation programming and education activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to childhood development, and whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas Parks and Recreation is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change, and whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas Whitemarsh Township recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Whitemarsh Township Board of Supervisors that July is recognized as Park and Recreation Month in Whitemarsh Township. Resolved this 14th day of July, 2022. And we are blessed to have an amazing Parks and Recreation Department headed by Tom Blumstrom and his staff. So we thank them.
Thank you, JC. They have won so many awards over the years, so we are especially thankful. An amazing 4th of July parade, our Township Day, so great praise to the team. Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so tonight we do have a public hearing before us. Do I have a motion to open a public hearing for the review of the conditional use 02-22 and Judge Aesthetics, which LLC, 454 Germantown Pike, which is a medical office aesthetics practice?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.
As you noted, this is a conditional use hearing for Judge Aesthetics LLC. The board will hear this case. The board has the option of granting the application without any conditions, granting the application with conditions, or denying the application outright. The parties are the applicant, the township, and any other person who wishes to become a party to the case. That means that you will have the right to call your own witnesses, to cross-examine the applicant's witnesses, and to be permitted to appeal any decision with which you don't agree. You do not need to become a party to the case in order to make public comment and to speak to the application. With that stated, is there anybody here who wishes to become a party to this matter? Seeing none, I would like to mark some board exhibits before we begin. Exhibit T1 is the application with floor plan, site plan, and aerial photograph. Exhibit T2 is the proof of publication printed in the Times Herald on June 29th and July 6th, 2022. Exhibit T3 is the lease agreement for the property. Exhibit T4 is the property owner authorization letter dated June 7th, 2022. Board Exhibit 5, Township Exhibit 5, is the applicant meeting notification letter dated June 8th, 2022. T6 is the resident meeting notification letter dated June 8th, 2022. Exhibit T7 is the zoning ordinance compliance review letter dated June 8th, 2022. Exhibit T8 is the posting of notice of this evening's hearing that was posted on July 6th, 2022. And Exhibit T9 is the Whitemarsh Township Planning Commission recommendation in the form of draft minutes from its meeting of June 14th, 2022. And that motion recommended approval of the application. Those are the board exhibits for this hearing. Is Mr. Rothman present? Mr. Rothman, why don't you come forward? Mr. Rothman represents the applicant in this case. Mr. Rothman, we'll turn the floor over to you to present your case.
Good evening, may it please the board. Thank you for having us. I'm Scott Rothman, the attorney for the applicant, which is Judge Aesthetics LLC. This is a proposed use of an existing building at 454 Germantown Pike. It's the rear portion of that property, the rear building. And the applicant is proposing to use this space for a medical office, specifically aesthetics. And what does that mean? That means Botox, injectables, laser hair removal, peeling, microneedling, fractional remodeling, and a few other things that I don't fully understand, but I understand them to be aesthetics, and this is a medical office as defined in the code that requires conditional use approval. Ann Judge, who's with me, is the principal of the LLC, and she has an existing practice in the Manayunk section of Philadelphia, and she's looking to move her practice to this location for a variety of reasons that she'll speak to once she's sworn in. We have submitted exhibits, as you've heard, to comply with all requirements of the conditional use ordinance. And we have a lease which has been signed with the property owner, which is contingent upon approval by the board of this use. So the applicant has standing essentially as a contingent lessee of this property. The code section is 116-37F, which lists out requirements to be met for this conditional use to be approved. We believe that the exhibits that have been marked by the township indicate compliance with all requirements, particularly parking. There's a drawing that shows exactly where the parking will be. There's dedicated spaces, 5 spaces, which complies with the code. The volume here is only going to be about 2 patients at a time. It's really just Anne and another employee who will be treating the patients. So there's really only the opportunity for 2 visitors at any given time. But we have 5 spaces for the 2 workers and up to potentially 3 people or 3 cars. But so it's a pretty low volume, low impact business in the back of this parcel. The front building, by the way, used to be, I think, occupied by McCarthy, a CPA firm, but it's now vacant. And we're proposing just to use the rear portion of the building. With that, I'd like to have Ms. Judge sworn in to give testimony.
Just raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you will give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And Judge? Yes. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Judge, are you the principal of Ann Judge Aesthetics, LLC?
I am, yes.
Okay, and what type of business is it?
It's aesthetics, like he had said, so doing Botox, filler, microneedling, vampire facial is another name for it, Morpheus, which is the fractional. Oh, I'm sorry. Sure. So we do Botox, fillers, microneedling, which I said is also known as the vampire facial. We'll also have Sue, who is an esthetician and lives actually in the township, and she will be doing facials as well as skincare. And that's basically the gist.
And why do you want to move into this space? Because you have an existing space in Manayunk, is that right?
I do. My current location is right off Main Street in Manayunk, but I do have a lot of clientele that live in the township, and I have a lot of patients that live in the kind of the surrounding townships. So it would be easier for them to come to me. And then I just actually love up here. My niece and nephew go to school at St. Philip's. It's a wonderful neighborhood. And I think that the business would actually do wonderful just being on Germantown Pike, because of, I know there's the Bodie Hair Salon. A lot of my clients go there. Harvest Moon Nails. My primary care is right here. There's a lot that just kind of has the same, where people want to do better and look better, so they can feel better. So I feel that the Ann Judge Aesthetics would bring that as well to the township.
How do you feel that your aesthetics practice would blend in with the surrounding area in terms of other businesses? Would you say that it's harmonious with them?
Oh, absolutely. I think the there'll be a very harmonious, yes.
And are you aware of what the other nearby businesses are?
Yes, like I said, Bodie Hair Salon, Harvest Moon Nails, I believe Crystal Nails is across the street as well, Sluac Orthodontist, my niece gets her braces there. Like I said, my primary care with Mainline Health is right across the street as well too.
And what do you anticipate being the hours of operation for the business?
So the hours would be 9 to 5, I would say, but it's my busy hours. It's kind of odd, I think, with COVID and everyone working from home. It seems to be like 11 to 2 now that women and men are finding the time to come in.
So any evening hours? Would you be planning that?
If they want it, yeah.
Okay. Sure. In Manayunk, what are your current hours?
Right now I'm 8 to 8, and I just did that to get the business up and running. So to meet the need of the clientele, I would do.
So how many evenings per week do you think you also might have extended evening hours here?
Roughly estimating 3.
Okay. Would you be open on the weekends at all?
Yes, Saturdays.
What time on Saturdays?
I would say 8 to 4.
Okay. Is this by appointment only?
Yes.
And what would be the volume? I know you mentioned yourself.
Sure. So it's just myself and Sue. So the max volume that we would be taking on would be 2 people at a time, just because there's 2 of us.
And how long are appointments generally on average?
About a half hour, 45 minutes for a facial.
And is there enough parking within the property to handle both you and Sue and up to 2 clients at a time?
Yes, absolutely. There's 5 spots located on the back, which is in one of the pictures that I believe you guys have, as well as it's a shared parking lot with multiple spaces.
The 5 spaces in the back, there we go.
Yeah,
Would they be dedicated for your practice? Or
they are, yes. It's 8 through 12. I think there's 2 8s though,
There's 2
so
8s there, yes,
it's,
so-
yeah,
And,
but 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
okay. And under your lease, are those 5 spaces dedicated for your practice?
Yes.
And how do you access the rear building? Is there?
There is a driveway that was in the initial picture, right on Germantown Pike. That is the entrance in right there. And that's entrance and exit.
So that's a shared driveway?
Yes.
And does that serve the front building as well as your proposed?
Yes.
building? Does it serve the neighboring property?
It does,
as well?
yes.
Do you anticipate there being any unreasonable levels of noise?
No.
No. Is all of this going on inside the building, your practice?
Yes.
How about any lighting, anything like that?
No.
Are you gonna have signage?
I will have signage, which I will fill out an application if everything goes well tonight. It will be the same sign width and height that the prior owner had.
Okay, are you talking about a sign in front of the front building?
Yes.
So if you're driving along Germantown, you'll be able
You
to
can see, yeah, just since we're behind.
Um,
I believe it's below the McCarthy sign in that photo.
Now, with the 5 parking spaces in the back, is there any buffering behind there? Is there any landscaping or trees?
There's trees. You can kind of see it in that picture.
And can you see any of the property behind you, or are the trees tall enough?
It is, they're pretty tall, but you can, if you look through them, you can see the field for St. Philip's.
Do you know if the property is serviced by public water? As opposed
Yes.
to a well?
Oh, yeah, no well,
Okay.
yes.
How about public sewer, do you know?
Yes.
Are you going to have any drive-through windows for any purpose?
No.
All right. Do you anticipate all the clientele coming by car or vehicle as opposed to walking?
Car. I do have some clients that are on Werner Road, so they may walk, but other than that, no. I don't believe any public transportation. Maybe Uber.
Okay, we have nothing further.
Board questions for Ms. Judge?
I've got a couple of questions on the drawing that shows the parking spaces. There's a notation that says shared parking. Could you describe the shared parking situation?
Sure. So you can see you go down the driveway there, and then the first 8 are they're marked off for McCarthy, which is now vacant. The 5 in the back are for me. And then where it says shared, there's an equal amount, so I believe 8 spots. Basically, I can't point to it, but where it says shared parking on the left, there's 8 spots there. And then on the other side of shared parking, there's multiple parking spots there as well.
You're talking
And-
about on the neighboring lot?
They're connected, basically. It's one big lot. There's a couple of trees in between, but you would be able to get to where it says lot. And they are for the neighboring building.
And what's the uses of the neighboring building?
That I don't know.
I believe that's a therapist,
Counseling.
counseling, yeah.
I note in the drawing of the layout of your space, you show 3 treatment rooms. You've got 2 employees yourself. And
Right.
Is there a potential that you'll expand to 3 employees and be able then to have 3 clients at the same time?
I mean, I do hope to grow my business, but right now it's just the 2 of us, and I don't foresee that for, I mean, a year. My goal is to grow, but right now I don't think that we'd be using that other than an office to chart for patients for me.
But even if you do 3 rooms, 3 patients, 2 employees, possibly 3, and you've got shared parking, if you were full up with 6 people, you've got shared parking to take care of the 1 extra.
What are you asking? How would I take care of
Yeah,
that 1 extra spot?
If you get to that point, how would you handle all the cars?
I would find a way to get there myself without driving. I can get a ride, Uber myself, so that spot would be open. If anything comes down to it, I would like my clients to have the parking. Sue, like I said, lives in the township,
Hold on.
and I'll find a way to make that work where we wouldn't have to use other parking.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I just had a question about, God forbid there was a medical emergency. Can you speak a little bit to how you might handle that, the space you
That I
might
can
need?
handle. I'm 20 years as a nurse, 10 years as a nurse practitioner. The vast majority of my time is trauma and critical care. I was the head of the nurse practitioners and physician assistants. I worked at Jefferson, and currently I still work at Lankenau. And I feel very confident that I can handle a medical emergency. I do have a medical director who, if need be, I can call him as a resource, but I will have everything on hand medical-wise. Epi, I know, certified in CPR, ACLS, so I feel very confident that I would be able to handle a medical emergency.
Thank you.
Sure. And my medical director is right down the street. He has a practice on Ridge Pike, but like down by the Rita's Water Ice. So if need be, if he had to come, he could.
Okay.
Any other board? I can open up to public.
Yep, it'd be appropriate, Madam Chair, to ask for public comment at this time.
Any public comments or questions? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, guys.
Are we comfortable on this? Okay. So I'd like to move this down and act on this. Do I have a motion to approve the conditional use 02-22 and Judge Aesthetics LLC, 454 Germantown Pike, for a medical office in the VC1 Village Commercial District?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Welcome to Whitemarsh.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from June 9th, 2022?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have 2 discussion items tonight. The first is the review of the subdivision land development 01-22, 931 Spring Mill Avenue LLC, known as the Westy project, which is 927 to 931 Spring Mill Avenue, and this is a conditional final plan for a 3-story, 20-unit apartment building. Mr. Meller?
Sure, I'll start before I turn this over to John. So this was a project that received conditional preliminary plan approval back in April by the board. They're proposing a 3-story, 20-unit apartment at the old, many people know it as the Fredericks Garage, most recently at 927 Spring Mill, and a half of a twin residence. The final plan is consistent with the preliminary plan. There are 2 additional waivers that were necessary pertaining to showing existing features within 500 feet and the width of street tree planting zone, and also 1 waiver that required a modification pertaining to the drive aisle with adjacent to the building columns. These were considered by the Planning Commission. They made 2 motions. One was to recommend those 2 waivers as well as the waiver modification. And then the second was with the condition that they present descriptions of a roof usage for a green roof to the board, as well as presenting proposed bicycle-friendly accommodations. So I'll turn this over to John, who is here representing the applicant, and he can go through. I'll give him a PowerPoint here.
I think your screen went blank behind you.
For those of you that are zooming in or watching on YouTube, we're just having a little, there we go, we're up.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Anderson of Cornerstone Consulting. I represent the Borkowskis at Borkowski Homes for the applications that's before you. I do want to apologize. They were on both. Mr. and Mrs. Borkowski were unable to attend this evening. However, I have their oldest children with me to also represent them this evening. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present our final plan. As was indicated just previously, we did obtain preliminary approval. We did obtain a recommendation from the Planning Commission for final. And I just wanted to go through and update the board as to what we have done since preliminary approval to where we are with the submitted final plans. So this is just an aerial photograph just to give you an understanding of where we are along Spring Mill Avenue. We're at the upper right-hand corner of the screen, which is the southwestern quadrant of the intersection of Spring Mill Ave and Lime Street. As was indicated, that it's the old garage building that is being torn down. There are 4 lots that are being consolidated. The twin on the left-hand side of the old garage building is part of this application and will remain. This is an updated site plan. It's rendered to reflect the various landscaping and various improvements associated with the project. Since preliminary approval, the Borkowskis have contracted with an architect, Rick Cavada, who has helped us lay out the preliminary floor levels of each of the residential floors. There's 3 of them, also the garage level. We worked with him with the structure, and that had dictated the layout or the adjustments of the layout for the parking that's underneath the building. The upper side of the page is Spring Mill Ave. The right-hand side is Lime Street. Again, it's the same, pretty much the same site plan that was shown in the preliminary. We have 2 entrances off Lime Street. One is an in only. It goes underneath the building, provides access to the parking spaces. As we circulate around the interior of the building in a counterclockwise fashion, we then would exit out a one-way movement back out to Lime Street. There is no access off Spring Mill Avenue. The structure that was designed, or the structural supports that's designed for the building, dictated a modification of the parking that's underneath the building, or surface parking. So if you remember, we had some additional parking along the perimeter that has been eliminated. All the parking has now been relocated underneath the building. We are providing 34 parking spaces, 32 of which are required by code. This is a 20-unit apartment building with a twin, so 32 are required for those units and the twin structure, and 2 additional parking spaces are required for electrical vehicle charging. And so we are fully compliant with the parking. As was presented during preliminary plan approval, or preliminary plan presentation, 6, or I think 4 of those parking spaces were stacking spaces, meaning that 1 car would be on the ground and 1 car would be over top of it. Due to the relocation of the parking and the adjustment due to the structure, we had to add 2 more stacking spaces. So there are 6 total stacking spaces for the ability to park 12 cars in the same space that you would be able to park 6 vehicles. Everything, again, is located underneath the building. Due to the relocation of parking and the adjustments to some of the building features, one was the access off of Lime Street into the building. The entrance area had to be enlarged slightly to accommodate stairwells and elevators. We also had to have a second form of egress that's off the back of the building. That added additional impervious coverage, and so therefore we eliminated some of the parking that was on the perimeter and reduced the drive aisle that's outside of the building. Thus, it allowed us to add a little bit more green area around the back, the side that's off of Lime Street, and also the side that is perpendicular to Spring Mill. We've provided a very generous landscaping buffer along the rear and side of the property. There's a dense row of evergreen plants combined with deciduous trees as well. It's just, the next couple of slides is just the layout of the building itself. So again, this is just a repeat of the parking scenario that Mr. Cavada had provided. This would be the first floor of residences that are above the parking garage. The next second floor of residences, and as you can see, we've got a varying amount of bedrooms. We've got 7 total 1-bedroom apartments, 8 total 2-bedroom apartments, and 5 3-bedroom apartments throughout the facility. And the way that the building is arranged with the apartments around the perimeter, each floor level has a community space that's going to be dedicated. It hasn't been determined totally what that community space is for, and the next slide will show you at the 3rd level of residential living. I don't know if this is working. An idea was to provide storage compartments within that for the various residences. And again, the entrance is off Lime Street, so on the right-hand side of the page is the stairwell and elevator in the main entrance area, and the left-hand side is the rear stair access. Next slide. This is pretty much the same elevation that was presented during the preliminary hearing. It's the front and left side. The left side, or in the rear of the building, which would be the rear off of Spring Mill Avenue. The left side is the left side would be facing Lime Street. Excuse me. What was asked of us during the preliminary approval process and also during the final review with the Planning Commission members really were excited about the opportunity of potentially providing a green roof area. And so we had pledged to the Planning Commission before we came before you that we would have a better understanding and a plan for you to view of what a green roof layout is for this project. And so that's what's before you. On the right-hand side of the page are the varying elevations of the building, and on the upper left-hand corner is the green roof layout. Large amounts of green area at the 4 quadrants of the roof, and then the center would be a center walkway that would provide access to a center rooftop outdoor deck. And so the proposal is to provide access to the roof. They wanted to minimize, at the Planning Commission, we had talked about the concern for liability for people up on a roof. So they've worked with their architect, and they're talking to 3 different green roof designers, and the consensus was to push the main open area or access or outdoor deck and living space into the interior of the roof, providing a very generous buffer to the edges of the roof. The roof can be accessed by both the front stairwell and the rear stairwell. as well. And as you can see, it's not providing additional pilot houses above the roof line. So this is keeping the same elevation of the building that was presented, and the architect was able to configure access to the roof without additional pilot houses or extending the roof area. And these are just, the next slides are just color elevations that were presented as well, just to show you the various finishes that the applicant would like to provide to the building, very upscale finishes for the project as well. And you can see the access off Lime Street as it enters with the VW Bug in the center of the building, and it would enter and circulate around underneath the building and then come out again with a one-way circulation movement. And this is the last slide, and just wanted to reiterate that this is the stacking component of the underground parking area, or the under the building parking area. And as that was presented to the Planning Commission and also the Board of Supervisors previously, you do not have to move a car on the bottom space to be able to get the vehicles out. So you come to a kiosk, you punch in your car's number, probably a code, and the stacking system will actually shuttle the cars around to provide your vehicle on the ground level so that you can pull it out without actually having to move another vehicle to do that. And that was a concern that Mr. Goodenplan had presented to us originally when we provided this idea, and we're committed to and showing you that we can provide that issue and resolve those issues. With that, I'd be happy to open up to any questions and comments with regards to the presentation and what we're providing to the township.
Thank you for that. Any board comments?
Well, thank you for coming back with a view of the green roof.
Right. Well, when
We
Natalie
appreciate-
Burkowski called me and said, "Hey, are we going?" I'm like, "Hey, where's our green roof plan?" I was very concerned. I told you I wouldn't come here without it.
You did, and I appreciate you bringing
Yep.
it. And very happy to see that you're also going to provide an opportunity for the tenants to enjoy it as well.
Correct.
In the green roof areas, do you know yet what kind of plantings will be there? Is it just turf grass or?
I don't know that answer. Mr. Burkowski has actually interviewed 3 different green roof designers. They are leaning towards one, and that is something that we can provide the board with updates as we submit to the township with those plantings. I don't know to answer your question, but I know that they're committed to providing in those 4 quadrants very large green roof areas, and that would it helps obviously with what we're experiencing now with the climate issues that we're having, and it also helps with stormwater management and so forth. But it also provides a nice area for residents to go up to the roof and enjoy that.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, it really looks like an exciting project. You've got the electric car charging stations, the green roof, the stacking cars. Yeah, it's very
I
interesting.
want that stacking car system in my house.
Yeah, totally.
You have that many cars?
No, but I'd get another one just to use it.
Just to use it, right?
Just a quick question about the stacking cars. Now that you have 6 of them, will they all be clustered together, or will there be 2, I see 3 here.
So one of the questions at the Planning Commission, and I'm not sure if it was Vince that asked the question, it may have been another Planning Commission member, was that since we're only showing 6 cars, isn't there going to be another 7th component? So they have to lay out the stacking system, and typically I would say they would consolidate them in one location. Most likely with the structure of the building and the columns coming down, they may end up separating them, but we tried to provide them on the end units underneath the building so that there's a little bit more room for accessibility into those stacking systems, and that's why we pushed them to that side. There's also a grading issue that we pushed them over there because that underground area would be easier to grade for a stacking system. But the system most likely will be designed in a row of 6 or 7, but we're only trying to provide for 6 stacking spaces.
Thank you.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's a good question.
They're asking you.
Absolutely, yep.
Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Ty Burkowski. I'm Chuck's son. I just have a comment on
And
the
Natalie's son?
and Natalie's son. I'm sorry. There was a question about the green roof, and I just think it's. I'm sorry. The question was like, what will it look like or something? And I just think, oh look, my father was a landscaper since he was like 14. And I just know he would make it look. It'll look beautiful, basically, and it'll be a really nice area to go up there and just enjoy. And yeah, that's all.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank him on our behalf for coming through with this plan.
Yep. And also the car stacker is like, it's insane. It's like,
pretty cool.
it's like a vending machine, basically. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Ty. Ty's actually a very good athlete as well. Give him that.
Do we have any public comments? Okay. Seeing none, I think we are ready to vote on this. Okay.
That would be appropriate, Madam Chair.
Do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-19, granting conditional final plan approval for subdivision land development 01-22-931 Spring Mill Avenue LLC, the Westy project, 927-931 Spring Mill Avenue, for a 3-story, 20-unit apartment building?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Miller, will you please call the roll?
Mr. McCusker?
Yes.
Ms. Toll?
Yes.
Ms. Turenne?
Yes.
Mr. Manuel?
Yes.
Chair Nestor?
Yes. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
So when are you taking applications?
I'm not sure about that. They have an interesting construction issue and stuff going on in the world today. So I know he's anxious to get this underway, but there are a lot of supply issues and stuff in coordination.
Sure.
But I'd like to have somebody else speak.
Hi, I'm Ava. I'm Chuck and Natalie's daughter, but my parents just wanted me to come up here and mention how great Krista and Charlie have been to work with throughout this entire process. This is something that has been in the works for years, and it's very important to both my parents that my brother and I were here tonight, as we and our other siblings will be taking this over in the future. This project has taught us kids a lot, and we're really excited to start building. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for sharing that. And we echo what you all feel about Charlie and Krista. So they are valuable members. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Good job.
Okay, so we have our second public discussion item. This is a review of the subdivision land development 03-13, The Hill at Whitemarsh, 4000 Foxhound Drive for Phase 2. This is a request for an extension due to 5-year vesting period expiring. Mr. Sanders?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did prepare an introduction to this matter to advise the board and the public what this concerns. Before I outline what this agenda item involves, I would like to note what this agenda item does not involve. This agenda item is not about the TACAR, the Temporary Construction Access Road. The Hill's right to use the TACAR was memorialized in a settlement agreement between the Township and the Hill dated September 13th, 2021. The agreement gives the Hill the right to use the TACAR for certain periods of time based on the issuance of building permits for the 2 remaining buildings in Phase 2. The use of the TACAR is not an issue here. In addition, the Board of Supervisors cannot stop the development from proceeding. The Hill has the right to proceed with its development according to its approved plan. Thus, the board is not making a build or don't build decision tonight. Rather, this agenda item concerns the Hill at Whitemarsh's request for an indefinite extension of the 5-year vesting period imposed by Section 5084 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. That provision states that once a land development plan is approved, the developer has 5 years to build the development subject to the ordinances that were in place at the time of plan approval. The 5-year period is extended by the length of any litigation, including appeals, which prevent the commencement or completion of the development. Once the 5-year period or any extension thereof expires, that doesn't mean that the plan goes away or that the project cannot be developed. It means that any amendments to the zoning, subdivision, and land development or other governing ordinance that occur after the 5-year period that adversely affect the right of the developer to commence and to complete any aspect of the development become applicable to the development, and the developer must comply with any such ordinance amendment. In this case, Phase 2 of the Hill was approved in 2016, but due to litigation and associated appeals, the 5-year period does not expire until December 5th, 2022. The Hill has indicated that it will not be able to complete the Phase 2 improvements by December 5th, 2022, and has thus requested that the Board of Supervisors grant an extension of the 5-year vesting period so that any applicable ordinance amendment does not adversely affect its ability to develop the property in accordance with its plan. Since the 2016 plan approval, the only ordinance amendment that has been enacted is the parking amendments to the zoning ordinance, which do not adversely affect the Hill's ability to commence or complete the project. It is possible that there will be no ordinance amendments that adversely affect the Hill's ability to develop Phase 2 of the project. However, the Hill has requested that the board grant an indefinite extension of the 5-year period, which, if granted, would mean that any ordinances that adversely affect the Hill's ability to commence or complete its project according to its approved plan would not be applicable to the plan. This is not a public hearing. The Hill has chosen at its expense to bring a court reporter to this meeting. However, the matter will be handled by the Board of Supervisors asking questions of the Hill, followed by public comment, board discussion, and, if the board wishes, consideration of the adoption of a resolution. Madam Chair, I turn it back to you for board questions for the Hill.
Thank you. Does the board have any specific questions? Just in wanting to start, if there was anything that we wanted to start with. Mr. Weiss, if you'd like to make some brief bullet point comments.
Yes, thank you. Dave, that summary was excellent. And to continue with the theme of Dave's summary, our request for the extension does not involve the 3 multifamily buildings that have been built. It does not involve all the infrastructure improvements that have been installed in preparation for the construction of the 2 remaining multifamily buildings or the improvements to the healthcare center. It only involves and asks the township to grant an extension of the vesting, which you have every power to do in accordance with the MPC, so that the plan that you approved in May of 2016, that you stood behind before Judge Haas in 2017, and that you supported before the Commonwealth Court in 2017, that plan, which has these remaining features to be completed, will be able to be completed without the risk that there could be a future amendment to the zoning ordinance that would adversely affect the project. In addition, the community center has also been completed, and all of the public improvements have been installed. I would like to ask Judy McGrother to please speak to you and tell you a little bit about the Hill, tell you why we are concerned about the vesting period and its expiration and the risks that it imposes on the completion of the balance of the project that you have approved and supported. And we also have Mark Silver here, who is the finance consultant from Piper Sandler, who can tell you why the absence of the continuation of the vesting will cripple the project. Judy? And Judy is the president and CEO of The Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Good evening. Thank you for the time tonight. As you know, in 2016, Whitemarsh Township approved Phase 2 for the Hill at Whitemarsh, which included 5 residential buildings, a clubhouse, and our healthcare renovation. And we were able to begin construction in 2019 and have completed 3 of the residential buildings, the clubhouse, and as Ross said, all of the infrastructure. And we still have 2 remaining residential buildings and the healthcare renovation to complete. In the middle of all of this project, we were struck with the pandemic and lost at least 2.5 years on the project and the ability to move forward. As we look at everything now, we are ready to move forward with the healthcare renovation, which is a very, very complex project for us. It involves not only 15,000 square feet of new building, but 60,000 square feet of renovation for our healthcare center that we will have to operate while we renovate. So it is a 4-phase project that we will be continue to provide services to our residents and at the same time renovate our healthcare center. Our healthcare center is 15 years old. It's dated, it's small, it does not have the infrastructure we need to be able to provide the technology and state-of-the-art healthcare services, not only for our residents, but also for many people in the community. And as we look at it, we are looking in this plan to add 8 additional rooms, to create a secured memory care unit, which we do not have now, a locked memory care unit. We need to renovate every single resident room, all of our dining venues, and all of the space that provide services in the healthcare arena. We need to add a medical suite for our residents for primary care. This will include a new access, elevator access for our residents and their families to be able to come in to the healthcare center and an elevator access that currently now we only have through our freight elevator in the back of the building, and to provide additional space for therapy and specialty services. So this is something that is very important for us to do, to be able to take a 15-year-old facility and be able to renovate it so that it is current, that we can provide the services that we want, and frankly, to keep us competitive in the marketplace. All of our competitors are either in the process of renovating their healthcare centers or they already have done it to be able to move forward. It's a very complex project, and as I said, it takes a huge amount for the pre-construction phase. There's site development, there's schematic designs, there's design documents, there's construction documents, and then we have to attain a GMP contract. In addition to that, we need approval, of course, from the township and the county as we move through this. In addition, we will be required to have approval from the Pennsylvania Department of Health both before we start construction and through every single phase. We will have to have them approve. And because of that, this is a 4-phase project where we will take down 15 rooms at a time, renovate them, renovate the common area space that goes with it, and bring it back up. In addition to this, we're in a very difficult period right now with supply shortages, labor shortages, and who knows where COVID is. Hopefully it won't shut us down again like it did 2.5 years ago. But it is, definitely a very, very complex project. So for us to be able to say that we could complete this project in a year's time is not possible. As we look at our project right now and the timelines that we have, we believe it's a 37 to 40 month time period for us to be able to renovate the existing building and construct the new building.
Thank you.
Okay.
What Judy has just explained is the time frame for the healthcare center. I was cautioned not to ask Judy any questions, but I'm going to ask her to come back here and tell you just a couple of additional things. Judy, what is the time frame, and would you come back up? What is the time frame on the 2 remaining multifamily buildings?
The time frame on the multifamily buildings is approximately a year to pre-sell and then 12 months to construct. So the infrastructure is in for the residential buildings. They're 10 units each, so that is a much shorter process and a much less complicated process.
And Judy, my second question, please tell the members of the board, what's the estimated cost of the healthcare center improvements?
The healthcare center improvements are going to come at a cost of approximately $40 to $45 million, and the individual buildings are going to come at a cost of approximately $7 to $8 million. That's in current dollar value. So.
And Judy, will that have to be financed?
Yes, it all will have to be financed.
Does anyone have any questions of Judy?
One question, Judy, you said something about the, I think the healthcare facility being available to the members of the community.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yes, we have a skilled nursing, a 5-star skilled nursing facility, and that has 60 private rooms. And we do provide, obviously, to our residents, we have a contract with them that we guarantee them unlimited access to skilled nursing whenever they need it. But when we do have additional beds that are not filled by our residents, we have a very, very good rehab practice and usually have anywhere from 15 to 20 people that are not our residents in our 60 beds that come in from the outside to receive a rehab.
Thank you.
Judy, but for the pandemic and but for all the litigation, do you have an opinion as to whether you would have been in a position not to have to ask for the extension?
I believe we would not have had to be in a position to ask for the extension. As you know, when we went ahead and came up with this plan, the residential buildings are important to provide cash flow to support the additional healthcare services. And so if we hadn't lost 2.5 years in the residential building and been able to finish that up and then start on the healthcare, I believe at this point we would be pretty close to finishing up. We wouldn't be, when we're talking, several years to be able to finish. It's almost like starting from the beginning at this point.
Mark?
I have one more question. Of the 2 buildings that are recently built, are they at full capacity, or are you still taking residents for those?
There's 3 buildings, and they're at about 90% right now. We have, I think, 3 units left.
Thank you.
Mark, would you please tell the members of the board and the public who you are?
Sure.
What your background is?
Sure. Good evening. I'm Mark Silver. I'm with, as Ross mentioned earlier, with a firm called Piper Sandler. Piper is an investment banking firm based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but has offices nationwide. I've been with Piper for 10 years now. However, I've been doing I've been working in the financing world for over 25 years. And most of that time, probably 23 or 4 years of that time, have been working with communities and organizations like the Hill at Whitemarsh, mainly continuing care retirement communities, in fact, in Pennsylvania, and really sort of the middleman as far as their financing projects go. Work with projects anywhere from $5 million to $200 million. In fact, I was involved closely with the original financing of the Hill at Whitemarsh now 17 years ago. And so I think the issue really is, to back up for a second, to give you some context in what I'm doing, it's very similar to an individual going to a mortgage broker or a bank to get a mortgage loan. I'm kind of like that mortgage broker that collects information and makes sure that the borrower meets the credit requirements and criteria that will enable them to get the loan. And that, obviously, these projects are a bit much larger and more complex, but that's the basic idea of my role. And so I guess the reason why I'm here is that we're faced with a very difficult proposition. In fact, probably an impossible proposition in obtaining financing for the Hill at Whitemarsh, because we're in a situation where the expiration of the zoning has occurred or will occur, and it will naturally occur based on the schedule occurred in the middle of construction of the project. And so that's really an untenable risk for any investor or bank that we would bring to finance the project. They want to know and be sure that the zoning that was granted isn't going to change, and that, you know, there's not going to be a disruption down the road, particularly during construction, that would cause the project to cost, you know, X dollars more or delay the cash flow that's necessary to fund the debt service. So that's in essence, I guess, why I'm standing in front of you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Members of the board, I've given the township to Rick and to Dave to give to you an exhibit book that had 5 exhibits in it. We've pretty much discussed them all. I've asked that they be included in the record. One of the exhibits are the copies of the 2 existing permits. And I have here tonight Mark Thompson from Taylor, Wiseman Taylor. He's the civil engineer on this project, has been through where we are right now. And Mark, would you just tell the board what the status of those 2 permits are?
Excuse me a second, I don't know that is necessary. Do you feel do you need?
My reason for offering that to you is just so we can close the circle as to the viability of completing the project. Because if you looked at the 2 permits, they have expiration dates for which they would have to be extended that could occur within this extended vesting period. So the question might be, well, if we extend the vesting, why should we extend it if you might not have your permits? So I just wanted him to tell you that. You want me to tell you what he would tell you? Or?
It's briefly is
Mark,
fine.
What's the status of the
Briefly is
permits
fine.
in there, and are they extendable?
Yes, correct. We have permits for the entire project. We specifically have an MPDES permit that will expire in 2024 and a HOP permit that expires in 2023. And they are both extendable. We can extend both those permits. It's pretty customary to get an extension on those types of permits.
And the last item is that the township still has close to $500,000, $414,000 that the Hill posted as financial security for the completion of the public and quasi-public improvements as part of Phase 2. So that is in place to further confirm and support the reason for the extension of the vesting period. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other board questions? Do we have any public comments tonight? And I'm just looking here. I don't see any coming in.
If anyone from Zoom would like to comment, just either put something in the chat or you can unmute and Chair Nestor will recognize you.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, I don't see anything coming in. So I think we're ready to proceed as planned? Yep. Okay. So I appreciate, Mr. Weiss, your presentation. I appreciate and am sensitive to the Hill, who are our residents. I'm also very sensitive to the neighbors of the Hill, who are also our residents, and that you mentioned this being a complex time for you. It is a complex time for all of us and very uncertain time for all of us. So we are all going through very similar circumstances. I feel that it is a good compromise. I feel that having an indefinite extension is not something that I'm comfortable with, but a compromise for a year is reasonable. And I think that's what we're all looking for here, is something reasonable. So what I would like to do now is put this to a vote for the rest of the board.
I'm sorry, could I just say one more thing, Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Okay. In compromise, I believe Judy would agree and encourage you to grant a vesting not for an indefinite period of time, but for a longer period of time. It's clear that the 1-year period, based on what Mark has told you, will cripple the project. And it's not a solution for the Hill that we could come back in 9 months and ask you to extend it again, because we're going to be at a point in the financing where, just like every project, when you go to get a mortgage, the lawyers look and do their due diligence, and somebody's going to look at the zoning and see that the project could be out of vesting, and that there's a risk that the zoning could be changed, and the lender is not going to put up the money. The Hill has relied on everything that the township has done up until this point, including the settlement last year that didn't say anything about this issue. I don't think either of us were thinking about it, but certainly the township expected that the project would be completed. And we're asking you, please, with all respect to you, Madam Chairman, a one-year extension is not good, and we will have to appeal and go to the courthouse. We have been to the courthouse with the township. We don't want to do that again if we can avoid it. And we're only asking you to stand behind the approval that the supervisors gave the project and supported, and enable us to finish it as quickly as we can, but not to jeopardize the project with the risk on the vesting. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. I still feel, I appreciate what you shared, but I still feel that this extension is still giving an opportunity to have this conversation again. So, again, I'm going to put this to a vote. Do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-20, granting a one-year vesting rights extension for the subdivision landing development 03-12, The Hill at Whitemarsh, 4000 Foxhound Drive, Phase 2, to December 31st, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Miller, please call the roll.
Mr. McCusker?
No.
Ms. Toll?
You're
Ms. Toll?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Ms. Turenne?
Yes.
Mr. Manuel?
Yes.
Chair Nestor?
Yes.
Passes 4-1.
Okay, so moving on. I think we next have, just making sure I'm here, a motion for the capital improvement purchase of the police department flooring. Do I have a motion to approve the capital improvement purchase for the new flooring in the police department totaling $48,056.00?
So moved.
Second.
That's okay. You're on, it's all good. I made a motion. Would you like to talk about
Yes,
the
thank you, Chair
flooring?
Nestor. Yes, so we'll talk a little bit about flooring. So this is actually in our approved 2022 to 2024 capital improvement plan. The budgeted amount was $30,000. This budgeted amount was a number that was obtained back in 2021. We talked about times being different. They're obviously very different with cost. As well as in the police department, it's a high traffic area. It's an area that is used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what they're looking for is a little bit more durable type flooring there that's going to be able to withstand that kind of usage. So when they went out and obtained some prices from CoStars, the amount came in at $48,056, which was the lowest amount. In working with our finance director, Kevin Barron, there is money that the police department has in a fund that they obtained from the Department of Justice. So when they are in a situation where they might be involved in, there's a crime and then there's assets that are dispersed, they are dispersed into a fund that can only be used for police items. So it is separate and apart from tax dollars or general fund money, but certainly under the direction of the board, but has a very specific use that it can only be used for police purchases. We feel that this is something that's appropriate. They'd like to get this project done. It's been something that they've been talking about for the last several years in order to improve that area of the police department. We think it's a good use of those additional $18,056 and are just here before the board to authorize that additional amount because it is different than the amount that was approved in the capital improvement plan.
Thank you. Any board comments or questions? Any public comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve a hold harmless agreement for a fence in the ultimate right-of-way at 516, 518 Bethlehem Pike?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Krista, Rick, Charlie, I'm not sure where to look. There's Charlie. Kevin. Anyone? Poor Rick's doing everything.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Good evening. I told Rick I would do the hard parts of the agenda for him this evening. Some of the graphics aren't that clear, so I volunteered to try and explain these. This is the building we're talking about at 516, 518 Bethlehem Pike. It's a dual unit building. It's going to be used for dog training on the one half, closest to you in this picture, and as a residence on the other side for staff member of the training facility. Rick, if you could move on. Okay, this is a not very clear picture. There is an existing fence currently right along Bethlehem Pike, thank you, kind of in line with the front of the building. That is going to be removed, but for the protection of the dogs, there's going to be this red fence installed, and the portion along Bethlehem Pike is further back, but not, but still in the ultimate right-of-way. And therefore, since there was never a hold harmless agreement or a waiver of damage rights for the original fence, we have asked the applicant to have this one approved for the portion of the fence that is currently proposed within the ultimate right-of-way. And Krista has done an analysis and a memo, which is also here, that analyzed if any site distance issues as a result of this fence and determined that there were none, and therefore staff is recommending that the hold harmless agreement be approved.
Very good. Thank you, Charlie. Any board comments, questions? Any public comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve expenditures totaling $807,574.13 and payroll totaling $689,738.33, pension paid costs totaling $5,172.74 for June 2022?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness to change the gutter configuration at 37 East Germantown Pike?
So moved.
Second.
Charlie?
Okay, this is the first of two certificates of appropriateness. This one is actually an amended certificate of appropriateness for one that the board issued at their June meeting. And you may recall that I told you we'd be back in July because the roofer had suggested different gutters on the back two buildings. Could you go to the next graphic, please, Rick? Can't remember what that is. I think that shows it better. That shows Yeah, right. This is it showing the difference where the new gutters are going, which are the back two buildings, and the half-brown gutters, which are the more historic style, remaining on the front historic building, but the HARB members agreed that the back two buildings, which have significant roof runoff, would benefit from the larger K gutters. K gutters is the more contemporary design gutter that you see on most buildings today. So they will be put on the back building on both the left and the right side. And then HARB asked to have an analysis of how they work after they're installed, but they recommended approval of the amended certificate of appropriateness. And again, nothing is changing on the front building along Germantown Pike.
Great, thank you, Charlie. Do we have any board comments or questions? Any public comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for replacing the existing fence at 49 East Germantown Pike?
So moved.
Second.
Charlie.
Okay, this is a few properties to the east of the one you were just looking at. This is a fence replacement, and I think the other graphics show this is the actual home. The fence is not visible from the street. It's in the back of the building. That's just an idea. This shows an existing post and rail fence, which is going to be replaced with a picket fence. If you'd proceed, please. This is showing the existing fence location against a fence next door. And I believe the next graphic shows the proposed style of the new fence. And HARB had no issue with it. It's behind the building. They found it appropriate and recommended a certificate of appropriateness.
Looks good. Great, thank you. Any board comments or questions? Any public comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now at the public comment period. Do we have any public comments? I know we have a couple people coming in on Zoom, but I don't see any comments.
Oh, someone would like to make a comment.
Oh, please go ahead. Please state your name. Kim.
If you could unmute and state your name and address for the record, please. Kim, if you could unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, you can make your comment.
Did you unmute
Hi,
her?
can you hear me
Oh,
now?
Got it. Yep, you're good. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I had to call in and I'm having problems with the laptop sound. I am a resident of 3009 Chestnut Street, and I was following up on previous meetings with regards to traffic safety on the street and the previous application for louvers on the lights, the status of the survey, and then any forward discussions. I know the chief had mentioned reviewing the no truck sign, possibly additional 25-mile-an-hour signs, and school zone research. I know that I've been unable to attend the other meetings, and I haven't seen anything on the agenda. I don't know if any other street residents have joined, but wanted to know if you had an update.
Thank you. Krista, yeah.
We had a contractor out to the site in advance of installing those louvers, and he determined that they needed to order larger ones due to it's an older style lens that's hanging out there now. So we're in process of having him order those materials, and we're still on track to have them installed soon. As far as police involvement, I can't speak to that.
Yeah, I know the police have looked at the signage that was out there. There was nothing that wasn't ordained as far as the signage that was there. So the signage is in place. Krista, if you want to talk about the survey, I think that was the other question about that.
Yeah, after the louvers go in, the next step is going to be conducting a public survey where we will probably hand deliver them to each resident and business along Chestnut, and it will just ask how each party wishes to proceed. Do they want traffic calming, that sort of thing. And then we can move on from that. That's a PennDOT process that we have to follow, so it starts with the public survey.
Hey, this is Tim Garrett, 3003 Chestnut Street. Krista, thank you for that. Can you comment both on the timeline of the survey process and also why, maybe I'm just not understanding, but why that needs to be followed for a non-PennDOT road?
The timeline I would expect within the month, let's say, and then our policy, our township policy, is to follow PennDOT regulations. We do that for all our roads. It's standard procedure.
Thank you. And is there, sorry, still Tim Garrett talking. Is there, in the meantime, any interim interventions that are possible to slow traffic, to calm traffic on the street? I think the last time we were all in a room together, it was February or March, and we thought that we were going to get a survey process started. And, you know, here we are in mid-July, and we've seen essentially nothing. You know, thank you to the good men and women of the Township Police Department for putting up the speed signs, but we've seen no change in the activity, and it remains a dangerous situation. So I guess my question is, Krista, especially, is there anything we can do to accelerate timelines? Is there anything we can do in the short term to do some safety interventions that are going to help us?
I think that the louvers are the sort of low-hanging fruit, easy interim solution. The hope is that we can get that public comment on which traffic calming permanent solution would be put in place. As I recall, at the last meeting, we discussed speed humps, and there seemed to be some disagreement there. So we want to get that quantified. And then I understand that the police are out there regularly. I think that's another interim solution.
I disagree with your last comment about the police being out here regularly. They are not.
They can't be out anywhere regularly in the township because they have to patrol the entire township. So they have it on an enforcement. It's not going to be regular because they have an entire township to patrol, but it is something that they have on their enforcement as we get complaints about traffic in other areas of the township. Those are areas that are enforced, but it's not going to be once a week or every week. We just don't have that kind of personnel to be out doing that for one particular street, unfortunately.
Well, Rick, I thank you for that comment, and I will challenge that. While we've heard that in the past, we regularly see township police cars sitting at the pump station across from Whitemarsh Valley Country Club, patrolling that street, way pushed back into the trees and the weeds. So we see them there. So we would just like our street to get a little attention too, please.
I'll pass your comments along.
This is 5 months in the making. Thank you.
I will certainly pass your comments along to the chief.
Thank you, Tim. And Kim. Do we have any other comments tonight?
Are we at the public comment phase? I lost track. Somebody came to pick up zucchinis and I couldn't miss that opportunity.
Yes, Deborah, we are at public comment. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just an idea I wanted to share with the township. I've lived here for over 35 years, and I've noticed that our business corridors have suffered over the years. It's, we've had plans to coordinate things, have amenities for them. I've been researching other townships for other purposes and saw the idea of a business corridor manager. And I just wanted the board to think about the idea that might be something that really might help Whitemarsh to put one person who would be the contact point for businesses to coordinate amenities and improvements and to help them. I realized when COVID came and we all said, let's help local businesses, and how little of my actual business is done in Whitemarsh because our businesses here are really struggling. So it's just an idea I wanted the Board of Supervisors to consider. You don't need to comment, but just something to think that we need to help our businesses and make it a more vibrant business community here.
Thank you, Deborah. Any other public comments? Okay, I'd like to announce that we did have an executive session tonight where we discussed litigation. And I'd like to have a motion for us to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, Whitemarsh.
Good night.